Well, hello, there we are, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome. I'm glad to see you tonight. I'll try not to talk too loud. We probably have a little bit of echo. This is not going to be the most pristine technological broadcast because we're in a makeshift studio that we have made at my house, in my shed, actually. Doesn't my shed look nice? And, I've just been thinking, why not do something fun? I'm up late at night. You're up late at night. There's so many things going on in the world. Let's have a very casual conversation. And that is what the Theological Insomniac is all about. It will be on from time to time, here and there. And we'll have, I hope, a great time. Just whenever I happen to be up, whenever you happen to be up, we'll figure out how to let you know that we are going to be on. But I want to talk about the normal and the abnormal and the paranormal. And I'll talk about it till I'm ready to go to bed. You may be ready to go to bed sooner than I am. Who knows? It will be just a delight to have you. I see that we've got some online here with us, and welcome to this very first broadcast of the Theological Insomniac from my little shed up in Taos, New Mexico, to your bedroom or living room or wherever it is you are tonight. Hey, why don't you, if you think you might like this program, copy the link, go over and put it on Facebook and tell them to come join us. We had no announcements for tonight, so here we are. For those of you who are with here, you're right, Linda, paranormal is a famous topic on radio at night. Who was that guy that was always so famous, died a few years ago? I can't remember. In fact, if you take normal, abnormal, and paranormal, it makes nap. We're going to get a nap tonight. Let's talk about the normal, the abnormal, the paranormal. How's that sound? Let's take a good nap tonight. Let's see, up in Washington State, our friend Eimer, tomorrow, verified this, but I heard it's also happening in New Mexico tomorrow, that Governor Wuhan Grisham is going to do almost the same thing. What I understand is happening in New Mexico is that it can be pickup or drive-through. The restaurant can be open to 50% of capacity and no more than 6 people at a table. Now, I may have that wrong just a little bit. So let's talk about that, because I have heard, Shelley just told me a little bit ago that Chick-fil-A in Texas, at least, beginning tomorrow, was only going to do drive-through. I think we will see more and more of this. Now, here's my opinion on it. First of all, there is social pressure and governmental pressure on these businesses and organizations and churches to close, to have this abundance of caution, to take all of these things the manner and the way they are. So probably all of these companies are a little bit scared not to do something because what if, right? What if? And then they get a lawsuit or they get bad press or whatever. And so everybody runs scared of that. That's kind of the society we're in. I think it's an unfortunate society that we run that way, but it certainly is the way that it is. But I think the bigger problem is on the governmental end. And there's a societal problem feeding this. But on the governmental end, there is this, I think what we're going to see over the next few days is dreaming up one more thing we should close down. Oh, yeah, last week we just thought about the schools. What about the restaurants? I mean, my goodness, there's people in there spitting all over each other, and we've got to close that down. And, the theaters. We got to shut those theaters down. There can't be people, in there sitting within 6 feet of each other. So we got to shut those down, or very severely limit, and probably have the Gestapo in there, making sure that there are not 2 people sitting together, especially holding hands in a movie. That ain't gonna happen. And we see just rampant government intrusion, I think, into private enterprise. And I really think this is a very dangerous thing for our society. Now, My guess is we're going to see more of it this week, that by the time we get to Wednesday or Thursday, perhaps, we are going to recognize or realize that they have gone far beyond anything we could have ever dreamed of. So today, over the weekend, they thought, restaurants and theaters and bars. I don't know what it is about bars. People kiss each other in bars or spit at each other in bars. I don't know. I've never been to a bar other than, Chili's Bar and Grill. But yeah, we got to shut down the bars, and they out, unfortunately. But if it's as bad as they say it is, probably we ought to just have martial law and close down everything. Let's stop mail delivery service. Do you know that the postman could sneeze on that letter, stick it in there? I understand it can survive maybe up to 3 days on a piece of paper. And so what do? Wear gloves before you open up your mail and all these kind of things? Let's just stop the mail service, right? Let's close down the banks. And there's already been some talk of this. Let's quit having currency. Let's not allow currency. Do you see how much this feeds into a couple of things? One, it feeds into a cashless society. That helps a one world government. We, of course, don't believe that we're going to be around for the time of the tribulation, but the Antichrist needs this kind of system where there is total government control over what you can purchase, when you can purchase it, and who can purchase it. And we see our freedom-loving American societies and Canadian societies just buying into this in a New York minute, literally. As a matter of fact, it's strange that it's the governor of New York that was a little slow. They may have changed this today, but was a little slow on actually closing the schools down in New York City and New York State. They're way behind the times and all of that kind of stuff. But whatever happened to give me liberty or give me death? There are people that have strongly held for liberty, and now just as soon as they hear that there might be a sickness come through, please, government, please, please, please come and help me. I'll give you whatever it takes. Take my business, take my home, take my automobile, take my guns, take my freedoms, go for it. I don't understand why our American society is shifting into that so quickly. Just other states, let me know in the chat box there what your states are doing in terms of closures. In New Mexico, I know that there is 100 people limit, although there is an exemption for churches. Some of the larger churches have taken advantage of that and went ahead and met. All of the Catholic Archdiocese of Santa Fe, anyway, which includes Albuquerque, Santa Fe, and all of northern New Mexico. So the bulk of New Mexico, I would say 2/3 of the population of New Mexico in the Archdiocese. New Mexico today, I bet that's the first time in 500 years that has happened. But nonetheless, as you know, my church met, and we had a nice little crowd, about, I'd say, 80% of normal that met today. So what's it going to be? What's going to be next? And can we really protect ourselves to that degree? And do we want the government to come and be the great protector? I pulled up an article that I knew was brewing. And let me put the article up on the screen here. New bill would give Albuquerque mayor emergency powers. This came out on Wednesday. Albuquerque's mayor could soon have new authority. By the way, if you just want something to laugh at, Albuquerque's mayor right here is named. He is a man named Tim Keller. Unrelated to the Tim Keller that you know theologically. But here, let's see, Albuquerque's mayor could soon have new authority to close sporting venues, theaters, and more in the face of spreading infectious disease, and also make private employers take steps to keep employees safe. That ought to scare Americans. It ought really to scare every American to say, wait a minute, this mayor, whatever buffoon he is, is going to be able to say, wait a minute, this mayor, whatever buffoon he is going to be able to step in, close sporting venues, theaters, and more, and make private employers, the donut maker, make them take whatever measures he thinks is appropriate to keep their employees safe. It goes on to say new legislation going before the city council next week would broaden the mayor's emergency powers to cover an actual or imminent infectious disease outbreak that presents an unusual threat to the health or safety of the residents of the city and threatens to unreasonably strain the medical or emergency resources available. Some of the problem with all this stuff is it's never defined. That's pretty loosey-goosey on exactly what can happen through there. It goes on. City ordinance presently limits those powers to situations like riots and natural disasters. You know, I'm not even sure I like the emergency powers in terms of riots and national disasters, but I understand it a little bit. But with a riot or a natural disaster, you actually know it happened, right? You can see that there was, all those guys fighting in the streets, turning over cars, burning and looting and all that kind of stuff. It's like, oh, that's a riot. I can see that. And a natural disaster. We had an earthquake. We had a tornado. We had a hurricane. They come often in Albuquerque. Whatever it is, you know those happen. Well, let me back up here. And what's the wording here? These emergency powers, it says to cover an actual or imminent infectious disease outbreaks that presents an unusual threat to the health or safety of the residents of the city. Well, that's pretty loose. An actual or imminent infectious disease outbreak. I just kind of, as the mayor, I think one's coming. And so, I want the donut maker to give his employees the next 6 months off with pay. This is important, really. I'm the mayor. I worry about these things. I think that the road we're going down, the pill that we're taking is worse than the disease. It goes on to say here, the proposed update comes amid global coronavirus pandemic. Let's see. We've got 4 confirmed cases. That's gone up now since Wednesday. And let's see. Local officials already have taken certain precautions, including closing the main library downtown for a deep cleaning after a city. Look, let me stop right there too. Close it for a deep cleaning. If I read right, I'm going by memory. I think this thing can live like 3 days. That means you don't really have to have a deep cleaning. You can just close it for 3 days. So my church, for example, we won't meet again until Wednesday night. We don't need to clean it. It's going to be dead by then, right? And yet we go through, scrub everything, get everything wiped down. I don't know that it does much good. And maybe we actually even do some harm to our way of life here. Now, the proposed update to the city's emergency powers ordinance basically adds a public health provision to the provisioning governing disasters like earthquakes or riots, since those rules don't apply to this type of situation and don't cover the thing we needed. The current ordinances leave it to riots and natural disasters, but we want to close down the city for what's not a riot and a natural disaster. It's an infectious disease disaster, a potential infectious disease disaster. And therefore, we should have these rights given to us. You see what a slippery slope that we come in. Now, as we go on here, there's a couple of things that I think we ought to discuss. He wants the council to use its emergency powers to both introduce and vote on the bill at Mondays at the council's Monday meeting. Now, you know what? First of all, that's pretty quick. We're just going to bring this out here. Great, vast emergency powers. Let's do it Monday. Oh, by the way, we can't have public gatherings, so it'll be a closed meeting. Isn't that convenient? Never let a crisis go to waste. And he goes on, let's see, to minimize any exposure to unusual infectious diseases. That could include new sanitation protocols or closures, according to examples listed in the bill. Here's one I want you to say. Let's see. Authority to set curfews, close streets, arms for an infectious disease. Stop the sale of gasoline. Why would you do that for an infectious disease? I suppose because you might want to give an order that nobody can leave the city. And in order to enforce the order, you're not going to sell gasoline. Now, stop the sale of firearms. Why? What in the world does the sale of firearms have to do with the spread of infectious disease? It has nothing to do with it. But you've got a liberal city council and a liberal mayor called Tim Keller. There's another liberal preacher called Tim Keller. And they come together and say, never let a crisis go to waste. Let's do this. Let's fix this. And what a blessed mess that you've got in Albuquerque. And of course, other cities, some of them had the foresight. Most New Mexico cities don't typically have foresight. It's not one of the things we're known for. But a lot of other cities had the foresight to say, let's go ahead and get this in. And they've already done it. And some of the states, governors, and cities are already banning the sale or limiting the sale of firearms and I don't know about gasoline, but what's to stop them? This is a runaway train that we've got, and let me finish this article here. It goes on to say, emergency proclamations made by the mayor can last up to 7 days under legislation, up from the current limit of 48 hours. That's what, 2 days to 7 days. Okay, it does have a limit to it, but what's wrong with 48 hours? In 48 hours, you can do it again, right? So why don't we leave it to 48 hours instead of 7 days? That's what I'm not good at math here, but that's 3 times what it is. But then it goes on to say, though city council would have the ability to end it sooner, the council could also extend the proclamation to a maximum of 90 days. And then, at the end of that 90 days, guess what? They can do it again. And guess what? Just like now, we've got an emergency, and our laws don't allow us to do it, so we've got to rush in some laws. What happens when they actually do this, and they come to the end of their 90 days, and they say, we need to do this more? And we actually also needed to prohibit late-night theological discussions and discussions about the normal and the abnormal and the paranormal. We better stop. And they begin to put this in. I think the time has come for Americans to call their mayors, and my mayors have been runaway trained on this thing, call their state representatives. They, for the most part, haven't been too involved because in New Mexico anyway, and a lot of the other states, they're not meeting right now. So it's a little more to the governor, but put the pressure on the state representatives and state senators anyway, for those of you who have 2 houses in your state, and call the governor's office and call your representative and call your senator and even call the White House and say, this runaway train with civil liberties really needs to stop. Slow this thing down. And I think it is perfectly fine for government to put pressure on the citizenry, on private enterprise, on churches, to say, hey, we really beg of you not to do these things, to close down these activities, to stop doing this, whatever. Oh, please, would you? Because here's the consequences if you don't. And they can say that long enough and loud enough that I think most businesses would comply, and most churches probably would comply. But this demand upon it, that's where it becomes so so, I think, dangerous. And I just see people who love religious liberty, love personal liberties, and yet they are, if I can, this is probably too strong to say it, but they're just selling their soul out to the government to come and protect them in this time. And I also wonder, why not just close things down maybe a week at a time? Why not say, we're not having school this week? At the end of the week, we'll determine for the next week. In my state, they've shut school down for 3 weeks and threaten more. Why do you have to go out 3 weeks? Why not just play it by ear? Let's see where this thing comes. I did have a discussion with one person today who works for the state, and he talked about some of the measures that were taken in the state for the things that they had cut out. And he said, yeah, at first, all sorts of new regulations came down. He said, and then over the last few days, we've gone out to get the baby and bring it back in. What he means is we threw out the baby with the bathwater, and already we've seen we can't do that. It sounded good in a meeting, but we can't do that. I hope that Christians will be faithful to come along and say to their societies and their communities, hey, here's what we need to do to make some things work here and to bring all of that about. Let's see here. I got all sorts of you here online. Do you people never sleep? What's up with this? Let's see what we've got on the chat box. Randy's late night UFO ramblings. I live in New Mexico, right? I mean, we got beautiful starry skies. Can you see it there? Someday I'll get a picture of a real starry sky and we'll put it out there. Just out the door right there. It's beautiful out there. UFOs too. I see them all the time. Cuckoo. Let's see here. Las Vegas. Oh, that's interesting. Las Vegas closed. I assume that's the casinos and whatever it is in Las Vegas. Honestly, I've only been to Las Vegas one time, and I didn't leave the airport. It was just a transfer through there, so I don't know the Strip, whatever that is, although you can kind of see it from the airplane window. So they've closed all that down. There's pressure on the casinos in New Mexico to close. I know that some of them have. One of the big ones just north of Santa Fe, Buffalo Thunder, has announced it's closing, I believe, tomorrow. Many of the other ones, I think, are still open. I don't go to them, so I'm not terribly sure. But pressure to close the casinos. I think it's going to come down to pressure to prohibit any kind of group gathering. As a matter of fact, I know in Israel, beginning tomorrow, if I'm not mistaken, and maybe it's already begun, they are limiting group gatherings to 10 people. And that is, might we say, government overreach. The Israeli government does not have as many civil liberties as we have in the United States. And I don't know what you do. Maybe if there's anyone who knows this legally, what about the Constitution? Coming back to the United States, the Constitution says we are guaranteed the right to peaceably assemble. I don't think there's anything in there, is there, about except in times of infectious disease, or we have the guaranteed right to peaceably assemble as long as we don't have more than 100 people. That seems to be an overstep of the Constitution to me. It is. Can you really set the Constitution aside that easily? It's a surprise to me. I wouldn't have expected it could be that easily set aside, and yet maybe so. I don't know. It seems to be happening. I think it's South Carolina. I noticed someone here from South Carolina. Yeah, Jim's on from South Carolina. Our governor closed the South Carolina schools today. I think that I saw, it was South Carolina or North Carolina, I read just briefly today, that there it is a misdemeanor to have a meeting, to gather in a meeting of more than 100 people. So you go to a church or a casino or whatever it is, it's got 101 people. Now, I don't know if the misdemeanor goes to the party that organized it, or if it goes to, guy number 101 that came in, or if everybody there now is under the misdemeanor. But I think that somewhere across America, somebody's going to have to test it. And somebody is going to have to get their misdemeanor, and they're going to have to take it to court, and they're going to have to fight it. And they're going to have to fight it on constitutional grounds and see where that goes. I hope it's you instead of me, honestly, because I don't have the time nor the money to do it. But somebody really does need to bring some of this back. I don't know, because I'm not a lawyer, I don't know if you can bring a case like that when the law has not affected you. Can Tom, Dick, and Harry just get together and say, this law is unconstitutional, we're taking it to, we're suing the government, whatever. I don't know how that works. But somebody along the way ought to check these things. Now, going back to Las Vegas, Dan, maybe he's from Arizona, which is neighbors to Las Vegas, right? Is that an edict by the mayor or by the state, or is it just casino owners and operators decided that was a prudent thing to do? I can understand a business deciding, it's a prudent thing to do. We're going to close. We're not going to be a part of it. Maybe so. If in that case, I'll say, okay, that's fine. But interesting. I don't know what that is. There's Linda in Mora. Do you know that Bob and Linda drove over the mountain today to be in church with us? They live like an hour and a half away through a windy mountain road. And they knew we were having church and that there might not be anybody there. And so they made the drive. God bless you. I appreciate that. Vina, why didn't you do that? I mean, come on. It's just Australia. So, Vina, you might be able to tell us. There's a note down later from Vina. Vina's in Australia. I was going to say, what are the precautions that are being taken there, or the demands that are being made there? I suppose to be more accurate. I see that she says 500. I believe I saw it there somewhere. Our crowd limit is 500 at the moment. Do 500 people live in Western Australia? I'm not sure. But you live in a remote area, don't you? So 500. Are they closing any other businesses? Have schools closed? What's taking place there? Somewhere there is the John Hopkins, isn't it? See if I can find this, like a COVID count or something of that nature. Here we go. I'm not sure that I got that, but that's an interesting news story right there. Russians hack John Hopkins coronavirus map to steal user information. Well, how about that? I was actually looking for that. Here's the map I'm looking for. And see if we can find this. Center for Systems Science and Engineering. And let's just try to find that. See if we can pull that up. Well, I'm not sure that where I find that. There's an amazing little tracking COVID-19. There we go. That is probably it. And yeah, here's our map I was trying to bring up. Okay, found it. So this little map that is loading here tells us around the world 169,000 cases. You know, the number we don't hear much is 77,000 recovered. That's this green line right here. And let's just look at China. China's the orange line right here. You know, that thing did jump up and then it flattened. You know, I asked one individual, why did it flatten? And they said, well, because of the draconian measures they took, and we would never be comfortable with those draconian measures, and it's going to rise here. And yet, I don't know, when I look, it looks like draconian measures to me, very similar to the actions that they took. But 77,000 recovered. I don't know what's what is that? 77. Let's just round this off. 1,000 divided by 169,000. That's 45% have already gotten over it. And you know, this is what's been with us 2 months worldwide. So I don't know. They're not telling us that. Yeah, you know, we got 45% already are over it. But let's see. I wanted to look up Australia in this map. 290. So 500 looks like is the gathering point there. Let's see. I see. Wisconsin is limited to 50. Bruce, up in Wisconsin. That's a small group there. Bruce, do you know, if you're still online with us, are churches exempt? And if they're not exempt, do you know? I believe we can also look here and let's see. We can see, I believe, let me put this up for you. I think we can come in by states here and see how Wisconsin looks to us. Let's see. Wisconsin has 34 cases, and Wisconsinites, is that what you call yourselves? Cheeseheads, right? Can only have groups of 50. That seems draconian to me. That's getting close to Israel's 10. Obviously, it's 5 times more than that, but interesting. Alberta, Josh says 250 in Alberta. I've seen a lot of U.S. states that are also at about the 250 mark. Idaho, Allison says, up in Eagle, Idaho closing most schools, some churches open, some closed, all businesses open as far as I know. Here in New Mexico, the only businesses I know of that have closed, I mentioned one of those casinos. It was a rather large casino that I know has closed. And as of tomorrow, at least 2 of the 4 ski resorts that are right here around my house. We are 20-minute drive to the Angel Fire Ski Resort. I think that's still open, but I may be wrong. We're about a 45-minute drive from my house to the Sipapu Ski Resort. I think that's still open. We're about a 30-minute drive to the Red River Ski Resort, and Red River is closing tomorrow early. And we are about, from my house, we're about a 45-minute drive to the Taos Ski Valley. The church is about a 25-minute drive to the Taos Ski Valley, which is world-class premier skiing, by the way, if you want some good skiing. They are closing early tomorrow also because of this. All of that's voluntary, but as far as I know, no businesses until tomorrow have been ordered to close, and restaurants and bars haven't totally been ordered to close, but for all effective purposes, they've severely limited their business. And, you know, how do they make up the money? Well, this thing that the Senate's going to vote on this week, if they don't straighten it out, it's almost of no consequence to the local government to say close. And then turn over your problem to the federal government, and they'll pay you. As if some of you saw my Facebook post the other day, I talked about how there was an employee could get 2/3 of their income if they hadn't been able to work because they had to babysit or whatever. And the government was not to question this is in the House bill, it was to assume innocence, basically. Assume that their request was accurate. That just seems like, boy, there's going to be a line tomorrow morning of people ready to take their government check. And there's no limit on this. This House bill is just an unlimited cash supply. So you can just imagine, soon as word gets out on how to do this, federal government's going to be doing it. So the state doesn't care if they are closing down all these businesses, because they'll say, hey, go get in line. You'll get it. You get your money that's there. Let's see. Bruce up in Wisconsin again. Public transit shut down in Green Bay along with the YMCA. Interesting. Are gyms staying open? I don't know. Are they going to be ordered to close? I don't know. There's the YMCA that closed. I assume public transit obviously was a public decision. The YMCA, a private organization. How did they come about? University of Kentucky is closed, Linda says, in Lexington. I suppose that's probably going to be true of so many universities. I think it was Rush Limbaugh that said that. I didn't hear him, but I heard someone report this, that Rush Limbaugh said some of these universities may find themselves in trouble because they're going to find out that students realize that they don't have to go to that campus to get an education. And the university didn't need all those buildings there. After all, what happens through all of that? Josh up in Alberta, all schools and licensed daycares are closed. So that means mom or dad has to take off work. There's just no way around it because they can't go to the daycare. Very interesting. I don't understand how it works here, but Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham in New Mexico has been on the news saying, we're closing the schools, but if you can't take care of your kids, we'll take care of them. Well, what, are they going to keep them all in a separate room? I don't understand how this is happening. In fact, I saw something in the Taos News today about the feeding of children. As most of you know, public schools now not only educate, they feed at least 2 meals a day, sometimes 3 meals a day, and they do it all summer long. All year long. So they have become the schooling place. They've become the feeding place. I understand in some places that public schools even do laundry. It's become, one-stop kid raising that has taken place. So anyway, what I noticed in the Taos News, I didn't read the article, but the headline said, they're scrambling, trying to figure out how to feed the kids now, and they're asking for donations. I'm thinking, wait a minute. I know the government already, the federal government's got this unending paycheck, and you were going to pay them. You were going to pay for those lunches prior to the time you canceled those lunches. So why in the world do you need a donation? I don't understand where this is coming from. I'm sure somebody could clear up my thinking on it, but I don't understand where it's coming from through all of that. CG, all of what is written in legalese is written to override constitutional rights. There's a good word of advice there. I think what are you hiding in all of that legalese that's there? It's Greek to me, right? Going back to that Albuquerque article, who defines imminent? The imminent, infection that comes in. Tara, all Colorado ski resorts were closed. I am pretty sure that is a state order. in Colorado. I may be wrong with that, but I don't think that was just voluntary, but maybe it was. Neil up in Alberta, Vulcan and Roswell have a lot in common. Vulcan has a better name, though, but Roswell has a TV show and, diners that are in space attire. And I lived in Roswell for a while, not very long. My dad was the pastor of the Trinity Baptist Church in Roswell, New Mexico, from, 1972 to 1974, probably. Just a couple of years. He was right out of seminary, and we moved to New Mexico in 1972, and I was raised in New Mexico. And, at that time, Roswell, the whole alien thing, which happened in the 40s, but the whole alien thing was not a big deal. It wasn't until about 1972, the Air Force Base in Roswell, New Mexico was closed. And the town almost died. And they slowly came back. It took them probably 20 years to come back, at least 15 years to come back. And it was through that time that they were trying to think of ways to get people to Roswell, and the whole space alien thing was one of them. So it's a Chamber of Commerce deal that came about. And in the early 70s, it really had not come about much. And really, all through my years of growing up, it hadn't got. In fact, I remember when I was an adult, maybe 15, 20 years ago, I'm not sure now, because I've been an adult a long time, that I went back to Roswell. I was passing through there and saw all this alien stuff and thought, oh, that's different. That's new. But it markets pretty well. People are interested in the paranormal, aren't they? And so came about through there. Now, Roswell has been known for rockets. Robert E. Goddard, the inventor of the rocket, came from Roswell, New Mexico. And so, let's talk Vulcan and Roswell one of these times here. I agree with Linda, back to Israel. They really have gone overboard in Israel. And you know what? I said this just briefly the other day on Ask the Theologian, but if you've ever thought about going to Israel before, but you put it off, let me say, get on the first trip you can with me after this thing opens up again. Because those guys, of course, you know that I'm very good friends with one of them, are sweating bullets, because this literally cuts off their income instantly. And it's something that 2 weeks ago they never would have dreamed. And now, not only do they have lots of money already out there and committed, but even more than that, they've got, a trip to Israel doesn't materialize overnight. It's something that's 6, 7, 8, 9 months, 10, 11, 12 months maybe to put together. Sometimes people plan out, 2 years in advance their tours. So right now, nobody's planning. So they've got a vacancy out there. And all of their trips here are having to cancel out. So they've got months and months and months of no income. I doubt the Israeli government is going to come in and bail them out. It might, I don't know. But these guys are really just so suddenly hurting. One of the things about, let's say, the economic crash of 2008, you could kind of see it coming. This one, you couldn't see coming. And even, I'm one of them, when we started hearing about it, I don't think any of us could have imagined what it would come to at this point. It comes so very quickly. Just amazing. Let's see. Arkansas, Jackie says, let's see. Is that right, Jeff? Jeff in Trinidad works at the Colorado Welcome Center, and they closed all 10 of the Colorado Welcome Centers. It's dangerous to say hello. No welcome in Colorado. Colorado's been hit fairly hard, hasn't it? Let's go back to this coronavirus map that is here. And let's see, where are we in Colorado? 135 cases, and they did have one death. I believe it was a woman in Colorado Springs. And that was the only death they've had so far. 0 recovered, so 134 cases. Let's compare that, say, with Kansas, which has 9 cases, New Mexico, which now is up to 17 cases, according to this. Wyoming, where they have plenty of social distancing, has 3 cases. Utah has 28 cases. So Colorado is really a hot spot. I suppose, and Jeff, maybe you know better than I do, I suppose a lot of that is people traveling in to go skiing, and maybe they carried it in with them. Again, I could be wrong on that. I think all of the cases that I knew about anyway, I think I knew about 13 now, this is saying 17 in New Mexico. All of the cases were people who had traveled elsewhere and came in then. But let's, Jeff, I suppose that's a state employee. I'm not sure. They continue to pay you during this time in which they're closed. I suppose probably. But what happens to that? There's so many residuals on this. If the welcome centers are closed, they are probably, and the ski resorts are closed, and billions of dollars come in through skiing. That affects the hotels, that affects the restaurants, that affects the gas stations, that affects the pot distributors, all of the residual impact that comes there. It is a huge financial hit. Now, the question then becomes, is it a financial hit that's worth it? I'm not sure anybody's counted the cost there. Literally, we're talking, I don't know, trillions, hundreds of trillions of dollars. I don't know how much money that is, but I don't even know if you could calculate the amount of loss that is going to come from this thing. And the question is the loss just coming from the response to it? Would it have been better to take the cost? As a matter of fact, all these school closings, I don't know what studies have been done, but I'm sure somebody's looked at it. Obviously, we only have a couple months to look at. But has someone seen that closing schools flattens that curve, as they all love to say right now? Is there any evidence of that? Or is that just some presumptive thinking? We think that if we close the schools, this will happen. We think that if we keep people from coming together in big crowds, this will happen. I don't know if there's anything that goes by it. Jackie says Arkansas schools are closed by Tuesday. 1 day grace to allow for distribution of materials for kids without computers or the internet. So I guess are they sending some work home in New Mexico? I don't even think they're doing that. I think they closed next week as was a spring break anyway, and then they've got 2 weeks after that. I don't know. I saw the CDC is recommending 8 weeks of closure. Again, why can't you do this 1 week at a time? You just as well shut it off completely. And by the way, let me say to you, if you've got kids affected by this and you think that perhaps the school's just going to carry this on out ad infinitum, go right there, jndarbyacademy.org, and click the blog button, and then read more. This very first one right here, coronavirus and online education. We are actually waiving the $250 matriculation fee for students who want to start immediately. and we'll just pick them up right where they are in their grade level and finish out March, April, and May. And they'll be done with school by I think it's the 22nd of May. And we've got a week of spring break as well, so they got a little bit of cushion time here. But they need to get in. We can't wait until they've been out 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 weeks and then try to catch them up. So this is a short-term opportunity that works for us and for them. And by the way, that matriculation fee, which is normally $250 per child, that's a one-time thing. So if they're in and they come back with us next fall, they won't have to pay that. It's done. That was scholarship to them, and it's only the tuition, and the tuition is just $100 a month. I don't think you can find private education for that. So if you're looking and you're saying, you know what, I don't know if I want my kid to do this forever. Maybe that's not for me. It is for me, but I don't even know if they're going to go back to school this year. Go to jndarbyacademy.org, click the blog button, look for the article on coronavirus and online education. You'll see all the details to it there. Then you can click right here for this no obligation enrollment. That gathers the information we need, but we're going to call you. We're going to talk to you on the phone. We're going to, get all the details before you're obligated to anything. And we'll try to get your child started right away. And I would appreciate it too, by the way, if you all would pass that around. Get that link on jndarbyacademy.org. Once again, go to the blog. It's the top blog that's there. And just share that so people will know about it, because I think there's some kids that literally aren't going to finish this year. And I suppose that the school systems are just going to say, okay, they were in 8th grade, now they're in 9th grade, move on, because what are they going to do? And be interesting to see, I suppose, what they do right there. But maybe Arkansas is having them do some online work there through all of this. By the way, if you've joined us late, welcome to our very first Theological Insomniac. I'm Dr. Randy White, and we're talking about news of the normal, the abnormal, and the paranormal. And I see that there's lots of insomniacs. You know, I kind of suspected that this week, a lot of people, they're messed up in their work schedule. If you're like me, you've been sitting there at night, trying to go between news stations, seeing what's going on. And my brain's just about to explode, and I didn't want to do that anymore. So I thought I'd just as well go sit in my shed and put some clouds and stars out and have a fun little time talking to you. To see what is going on here. Let's see. Individual. Okay. Las Vegas individual casinos decided. That's better than the state deciding. They decided as soon as Trump announced bailouts for hotels. That's a good deal. We can look good with the public and cha-ching, take the government money. Works out pretty good. Wow, they said only a 3% capacity this weekend in Las Vegas. That means nobody's traveling anyway, so they just as well shut down and then take the government money. What'll be interesting, I hope it doesn't happen, but what'll be interesting is to see if they institute an internal travel ban where airlines are not allowed to fly from one state. Or could it be that Colorado might say nobody can come in, nobody can drive in, we're going to put roadblocks up the borders and not let anybody in? Talk about overkill, but there it is. Terry says 100 in Ohio for the gathering. Isn't that like Dan's comment there? Pay me enough and I'll shut her down. Amen, right? Ohio is one of the worst hit. Am I mistaken? Let's go back to our map here, and let's see where did Ohio move to? There it is. Oops. Got this map going all over here. Let me get it where you can see it. Okay. Ohio. 37 zero deaths. Okay. Which wasn't there one of those states that was very hard hit? Maybe Ohio is just taking it as hard hit there, but 100 in the public gatherings. Terry, do you know, are churches exempt from that, or does that include churches as well? Okay, the CDC, Linda says, recommends 50 or less in gatherings. Um, I wonder how you determine these things, that we wouldn't spread the virus as much if we only had 50 or less. But if we had 60, they shake hands when they're 60. I don't know how you come up with this. I think you just make it up. And Dan says that map looked like the earthquake map. Maybe they're trying to hide earthquake frequency. Maybe so. I said from the beginning on this, I don't know that it's really true, but and this was when it was just in China. I said, I wonder what they're doing behind the scenes, and they needed a news article over here, or get everybody focused over here, or close everybody up in Wuhan because we're going to move some material in there and do some things that we don't want on the news. I still have some suspicions there. Gary says these closings aren't going to work. I don't see them working. I don't see that Americans are going to stay home, or can they even stay home? I don't know how that works. We're not very built to stay home. Very few people stay home. We get cabin fever, after 2 days of Thanksgiving. And that's when you got sports to watch on TV and turkey to eat. And still, man, you by Sunday of Thanksgiving weekend, go to a restaurant on Sunday noon, and that thing is packed full because everybody's sick of staying home with their family. So I don't know that we're really going to stay home. And furthermore, if the virus is that simple to spread, I don't know how it's going to not spread. Through the mail, through the whatever it is. I don't know. Going to the grocery store. Got to go to the grocery store. Got to do that. Say no, have it delivered. Okay, well then that guy he sneezed on your groceries. Whatever it is, we deal with it. This is a thing of life. I don't know that it's going to work right either. Mel up in how did I forget that? Not Michigan, is it? But systematic socialism. Somebody said, I heard him say that just yesterday or today, said, well, maybe by this, people will see how bad socialism is and they won't be as interested in Bernie Sanders. And I didn't say it because it was kind of a passing conversation, but my thought was, they won't have to vote for Bernie Sanders because he got the socialism in. I mean, look at the government programs. Can you imagine if, let's say in some of those debates last fall with all the Democratic candidates, if any of them had said, let's make a blanket check from the government in case there's ever a downturn due to some, freak thing, that we'll pay the hotels, the people, the employers, the restaurants, blah, blah. All of the conservatives would have laughed and until they shut the TV off. They would have said, never, never, never. And now it's happening. So who needs Bernie Sanders, right? Republicans will do it and the Democrats will do it. And they'll all come together and do it. I was suspicious of that bill last week, the House bill. Again, I wrote some of it on our personal Facebook page. But when I noticed that every Democrat voted for it and 40 Republicans voted against it, I said, there's something in here that's not right. And then I went and read the bill. I haven't read a bill in a long time, and it was, 40 pages of legalese. But even I could look through that and say, This is a blank check with no end to it and no oversight. It is a huge expansion of government that will never go away. I hope the Senate fixes it this week. And I would encourage you, by the way, to call your senator, because they're going to be discussing it this week, and see if they can do something to tighten this bill. I'm sure something needs to be done at this point, but I think it's probably a government-made problem, a media and government-made problem that we've got at this point. Yeah, it's a systematic socialism. It's a good way to put it, Mel, or a forced communism, which is almost the same as a systematic socialism. But the communism aspect of it, socialism being the economic side of it, but the communism side of it, the government side of it, that's again, that's what you see in this right here. New bill would give Albuquerque mayor additional emergency powers. That is to say, we can't do this without forcing it. That's communism. Socialism won't work unless we force it. And these emergency powers, nobody would go with them unless we just force it on. All these things that we want to do or carry out or take away just doesn't work. So, yeah, Mel says two sides of the same coin. Linda works for Amazon. As Amazon, we got free days off this month if we get sick, no questions asked. If diagnosed with COVID-19, they have a $25 million fund set up. Wow. I am sure that every Amazon employee is totally honest. So I doubt there will be any abuse of that, because, they're all, we're good people at heart. And especially, no doubt, those who work at Amazon, like Linda. Hope you got moved, by the way. So, okay, yeah, free sick days, no questions asked. That was in the House bill, is that if a person took off from their employer, used their sick days, the employer could not require documentation. I think, many employers, especially larger employers, would say, yeah, just, give me a note from your doctor or whatever, or something we can put in the files. And it's actually in the law that the employer cannot ask for documentation. That's just, why? Why can't an employer ask for documentation? Doesn't make sense to me. Let's see here. Tara, it was, okay, Colorado state order on ski resorts. I was thinking that I had seen that it was. So this is a case in which the state brings about a decree to close a state business, not based upon any of their regulatory powers. That is to say, they haven't passed inspection, or some of the things that states probably already have way too much power to do, that, they can close you down one way or another. But typically it takes a while, and there's a little bit of recourse in here. But this is a case in which the state of Colorado has, obviously, the governor, who is the governor there now? It's not Hickenlooper anymore, is it? Maybe it is, I'm not sure. But the governor obviously has some emergency powers that he is able to take and put and do those together, and have, again, I would suppose, no recourse. I suppose he doesn't have to go have a trial. I don't suppose he has to take this to a court. I don't suppose that the owners of the ski resorts come in and bring their lawyers and give their case and all the things that are there. I don't suppose he has to recompense the ski resorts. He probably just pass that on to the federal government. They're going to do it. Don't worry about it. And to have this kind of ability, again, I think that's just a very frightening thing. And I don't have any problem, one more time, I don't have any problem with the governor saying, please, we beg of you, we've got a death from this already. We need this to happen. But that's not what's happening. Rick out in California says our California governor made some strong suggestions totally and said more is coming in 48 hours. Do you think they are waiting for the next election primary votes to take place? I think that's Tuesday. I don't remember where primaries are on Tuesday. Those poor Democratic candidates. Who are they again? I forgot. I think they even have a debate tonight. I did find one funny little meme on Facebook as I was scrolling through just a little bit ago. Someone said, I watched 30 minutes of Grumpy Old Men before I realized it was actually the Democratic debate. But I guess there was a Democratic debate tonight. Maybe somebody watched it. I think it was on CNN, and nobody's watching that anymore because nobody's in the airport, and that's 99% of their audience. So I don't know who watched it, but that whole thing's kind of gotten sidelined. And again, maybe the Democrats don't care because they're getting everything they want. Their agenda is being fulfilled. Who needs a president? And all these other offices. If you can get everything you want anyway, it doesn't really matter. But some of this, more is coming in 48 hours. That tells me we're planning stuff. We don't want to bring it out just yet because that might look bad for that election and wherever these states are that are taking place. I don't know. Seems a little suspicious to me, I think, as well, Rick. Lisa in Kansas. I think this is where it's coming to. Lisa says, I read online tonight that martial law was to be declared in 2 days. Those saying this say they have military friends who are getting their affairs in order. That seems to me like the natural progression of this thing. I hope it stops before then. And obviously all of them are going to deny it before then. But what if groups are not voluntarily keeping under 250 or 100 or 50 or 10? What if they have rogue pastors out there who are still having their services? What if, some restaurant out there had 51% of their capacity? And what if kids are going to the park and playing with each other or playing ball out in the street? Does any kid know how to play ball out in the street anymore? I don't know. What if? The truth is, all those what ifs are going to happen. We're not just going to sit tight in our house forever. All of those things are going to happen. And with that, what do they do next? Martial law. I saw an article somewhere. Let's see if pull up Fox News here. I may have seen it on Fox News. Let me find National Guard. No, it's not there. One of these states had the National Guard was called in for something. And I think we're going to see that more and more, that that's what they're going to have to use is the National Guard. And then very quickly that turns into martial law. And I don't know, we'll probably have to say I told you so when it's all said and done. The flip side of this is, let's go ahead and be honest with it. The flip side of this is maybe they're right. Maybe this thing is as dangerous for our society as they're making it out to be. Maybe it does overwhelm the healthcare system, and they're trying to keep the healthcare system from being overwhelmed. And maybe you and I get sick, and it goes on to whatever 2, 3, 4, 5, 6% of us die. maybe that's right. My problem is I just don't see that in the numbers. Again, when you take a look at these global COVID-19 cases, 169,000 cases, 6,500 deaths, and 77,000 recovered. Of the 169,000 confirmed cases, how many of those went to the hospital? What did I see the other day? That was it 1 million beds that the United States has? 1 million hospital beds. Here you've got 169,000 total cases, so they don't fill up the hospital beds. Now, does that grow at a rate that 2 days from now we have 500,000 cases? And then at that, I don't know. Let's get up to 1 million cases worldwide. I believe I read that about 20% will need hospitalization. That's 200,000. Again, that's a long way from where they're saying this is our capacity. So I don't. Maybe I'm not hearing them right. Maybe I'm tone deaf. Maybe I'm trying to defend my own position. Could be. But even at that, do the measures we're taking, is there any evidence that that's actually going to fix it? I don't know that we wouldn't be just as good off saying, hey, guess what? Everybody needs to go out into the sun and, do sunbathing, and get out there and cook it off is what you need to do. Or you need to jog for a mile, or I'd probably overwhelm the hospitals if we did that. What is it that, is there something else that could actually help? They put hand washing out there. I think that's a good measure. I mean, I think it's pretty proven that viruses go down the drain. And who knows? Let's see. One benefit is no traffic. You're right, Mel. Nancy says one case in Pueblo, Colorado, a person went to the ER and then was sent home. That doesn't that kind of spread it? When they're telling us, let's take all this testing. They've got drive-through testing in Albuquerque and probably all the big cities. So yeah, I got a little fever, got a cough, I better go get tested. Okay, I get tested, they add my number to the map, and they send me home. Why bother getting tested? Why not just get over it? I don't know. Again, maybe a doctor would set me right and have a different insight there. Warsaw, Indiana, Mel. How did I get Michigan out of that? Warsaw, you ought to know all about communism, right? Okay, let me see. I lost my place here with Nancy was talking about Pueblo, Colorado. Okay, here we go. Tara, 2 weeks ago, we had a great economy. Stock markets were high. Capitalism was thriving. Now, all of a sudden, we're putting out a 700 billion bailout, 0% interest. And people are begging for socialism. People are behind it. This is not 100% organic. I think you're probably right there. Even if they were not behind it from the beginning, they sure got behind it quick. And, Rahm Emanuel's famous lines, never let a crisis go to waste. We've got that. Going on through all of that, and amazing there. Let's see. Interesting. Lisa, Nancy's daughter in Pueblo, Colorado, an outpatient operating room nurse in Pueblo waiting to find out if they're stopping elective surgeries. that'll be interesting, I guess, to make room for those that are going to be flooding these hospitals soon. Another thing, through the other countries, I know in China they had these makeshift hospitals that were built quickly. Have other countries had their hospital systems overrun? Maybe in Italy, I don't know. Would be interesting to know what's up there. Let's see here. I wanted to go to Alex Jones might be right this time. Jim, that's a good idea. Use a popsicle stick to scratch your face. Well, keep a little popsicle stick right there, right? I don't know, maybe a lighter. There we go. See, I can't burn my hair, so it's fine for me. I told y'all before, I have one of everything sitting across the desk from me at all times, like a lighter. Okay, let's see. How low can we go? A good word there. Both candidates tonight in tonight's debate said they will have a female VP candidate, but would not. But no names were mentioned. That's interesting. I have not checked up on the on those debates at all. I mentioned them earlier. So interesting. They both say they will have female VP candidates. Not surprising. Almost have to, because the party of inclusion has, gotten rid of anyone of color, all of the ladies, all of the young people, and ended up with two old white men. I don't mind two old white men, by the way, and their age doesn't really even bother me. I don't know on Joe Biden if he's just gaffe prone and says things that don't always line up. It's worthy of checking. A couple of years ago, the public forced Donald Trump to go through some testing. I forget the kind of testing they call it, but basically some cognitive testing, I believe it was. And he went through it. Well, why not Joe Biden? But it's not terribly surprising. They both say they're going to have a female vice president candidate. Both parties have had female vice presidential candidates before. None of them obviously have ever won, but Geraldine Ferraro in 1984, wasn't it, with Walter Mondale? And that was a dismal outcome for the Republicans. Probably not because of Geraldine Ferraro. Was Ferraro, wasn't it? In fact, she might have been the better candidate from Walter Mondale, who looked a little bit like Dracula, didn't he? But then we had Sarah Palin that ran with John McCain, and she was a ball of fire, but didn't add much to the candidacy, and the candidacy was weak already. And I think those are the only two vice presidential candidates on major parties, if memory serves me correctly. So looks like we'll have another one here. Who knows? Probably is Tulsi Gabbard still in the race? I may be wrong. Maybe she's still technically in the race. I don't think anybody's paying any attention to her. If she is in the race, she may have gotten out. Could be a Tulsi Gabbard. Could be. I doubt Elizabeth Warren, but maybe Elizabeth Warren. I think Elizabeth Warren would, give up her tribal rights in order to be vice president. She would love to be the vice presidential candidate. She has visions for the future. I'm kind of like Donald Trump. I don't think she's that good of a candidate. I think she's kind of a weak candidate. I think she's kind of annoying. And American politicians can be a lot of things, but annoying is not one of them. And she just sort of, like the hands on the chalkboard. Maybe I'm wrong there. Maybe y'all love her. I don't know. Maybe that's why you can't sleep. Who knows? But it'll be interesting. Maybe another lady that's not seen. Kamala Harris, maybe. Probably, I would guess, if I were putting money on it, I would guess it's one of the women that has already run because of the name recognition or has been running. But maybe someone like Gretchen Whitmer in Michigan, if they want to bring in some executive experience onto the ticket. And probably they're going to wait. Here's my analysis of it. They will wait until the convention, if that's even going to take place. They'll wait for the convention before they decide, because they want to push that to the last minute to, excuse me, I'm not supposed to put my finger in my mouth. Better stop and take a drink here. There we go. They want to see which way the wind's blowing, where they need to garner the support, go with that. Now, the other possibility is that one of them will decide now. If so, it would probably be Bernie Sanders. And that's because these candidates get desperate at some point to stay in the news cycle. And so they will choose one before they want to choose one, because they have to choose one because they're being ignored. That's what Ted Cruz did in the last election. Remember, he made it, didn't he, all the way to the convention, if I remember right, going up against Donald Trump. And it was known by the late primaries. New Mexico was a June primary. And Donald Trump had it by the time it got to the June primaries. But he selected Carla Fiorini, wasn't it, to be his running mate, just as a begging to get on the news cycle. Donald Trump knows better than anybody how to get on the news cycle. He just takes this out right here, and he puts in 144 characters, and he sends it, and he'll say something like, Elizabeth Warren is ugly, boom, and bingo, he's back in the news cycle. He's brilliant at it. He doesn't have to spend money with all the other things that are going on. Some of you on the East Coast, it's getting kind of late. Thanks for staying up with us here tonight. Rick, on the West Coast, it's early for you. Did Rand Paul vote on the bill? I usually take a look at how he votes, since he's usually a bit more like his dad. Let's talk about Rand Paul. First of all, no, he didn't, because only the House has voted, and Rand Paul obviously is in the Senate. So he's going to vote. I think it's too early to say how he's going to vote, because they're going to recraft that bill. It's going to become kind of a different thing. Have not read the article, but I did notice just a few moments ago that the headline article on Fox News right now is, "Here's how the House emergency coronavirus bill could sink in the Senate." From that, they're saying that it's not going to be the same bill. A lot of that stuff's going to be taken out. So maybe they can take it out to the point where Rand Paul will vote on it. Rand Paul, of course, is a libertarian. Rand Paul is a very fiscally conservative, and I would guess would not have voted on the House bill had he been in the House of Representatives. I would prefer, in this case, a bill that Rand Paul could vote for, because he's usually pretty no nonsense as it comes to those fiscal bills. I don't always agree with Rand Paul. In fact, a lot of times I disagree with Rand Paul. I wouldn't want a Rand Paul presidency. I wouldn't. I personally wouldn't go there. I wasn't for Ron Paul. And interestingly, just in case you care, I went to college with Ron Paul's son, two sons, and not Rand, but Rand has two brothers. And so Scott and let's see, I forgot the other one. Went to college with them. Didn't really know them very well, but we were on the same campus at the same time, Hardin Simmons University in Abilene, Texas, which is having some problems of its own. Maybe we'll talk about. Then Rand Paul was a congressman from Texas, lost his seat, later was reelected to his seat. Then I lived in Katy, Texas, which was in Ron Paul's district. Ron Paul, the dad. His nickname was Dr. No. Maybe you remember that Ron Paul was a physician and thus the doctor, and he voted no on everything. Look up his record. There was very few things he ever voted yes for. He was Dr. No. I didn't like him as my congressman. Because I felt that my congressman needed to go and do something other than just block everything. Now, I would rather he just block everything than be AOC and do something. But I wanted him to try to push forward an agenda. He didn't do that. I had Ron Paul in my office once at the pastor's office in Katy, Texas. He spoke at one point. He's very pro-life, and so he was a speaker in a pro-life event that we were having. And so I met with him. We visited about his sons and all that kind of stuff. But I couldn't support or endorse him. He's not pro-Israel. Part of that based upon his libertarianism, because he's very isolationist as a libertarian. But I think that there's some concepts in many ways. I'm very libertarian, as maybe you picked up tonight. But I wouldn't want a libertarian party president. I think they've got some flaws in their thinking that really get at the heart of the presidency. And the presidency is about foreign policy for the most part. And Ron Paul and other libertarians just don't want anything to do with that. In fact, Gary Johnson, the last libertarian candidate, he is my neighbor, so to speak, in Taos, New Mexico. He lives in Taos. I don't see him or know where he lives or anything like that. But technically, I guess you could say we're neighbors. He was the governor of New Mexico. He was a Republican governor of New Mexico at a good time in which oil was good and all that kind of stuff. And oil's a huge revenue maker in New Mexico. And so he wrote it and left a nice surplus for the next Democratic governor to spend. This is the way it's always gone in New Mexico, by the way. You get a Republican who saves money, and they get lots of money in the coffers, and that's followed by a Democrat who spends the money. We just had Susana Martinez, the Republican, left with a huge surplus, and now Michelle Lujan Grisham has totally spent it and is going to find herself in a heap of trouble because oil's now at what, $25 a barrel or something like that. And that very much affects the New Mexico state income. Yeah, we'll see what he does with that. ISIS leaders, Linda says, told their terrorists not to go to Europe because Obama corona. Interesting. Okay, let's see where we are here. Dan, do not tell the government you are sick. You'll be put into internment camp. I don't know if I should say this broadcasting, but let me go ahead and say I'm not getting tested. If I get a cough, a fever, I'm going to have to get uber sick before I go get one of those tests. For a number of reasons. They put that little swab in you and get all your information, let you know in a few days. Do they do your DNA while they're at that? I don't know. Maybe they do. I think that's the same kind of stuff, isn't it? What else are they doing there? Again, maybe I'm a libertarian in that degree, that if they're all they're going to tell me is, yeah, you got it. Well, I don't need to know that. I just, if I'm sick, I'm going to stay home. And maybe I'll broadcast while I'm home because, hey, this is in my shed. And I can just sit right here and do it, right? Okay, let's see. I got you all are just chatting away here. Does anybody sleep? What are y'all working late? Like Mel here, working nights. Mel asked, Rand Paul is a libertarian. I think technically Rand Paul is a Republican. Ron Paul was a libertarian. But even he, in his Congress seat, was a Republican. So, those Republicans and libertarians kind of overlap a lot, kind of like Democrats and socialists overlap a lot. So maybe through that. I wondered, I was kind of afraid somebody might say that. I see Scott says, a question just got here. Are those your pajamas? It's actually a flannel shirt. It's, what's that brand there? I don't know, Little M kind of thing. My wife got me this for Christmas. It's a flannel shirt. And I thought, with this cloud background, it kind of looks like pajamas. I should have put a different shirt on. But all I need is a pillow. I don't have a pillow. Let's see. What do I got here? Oh, there we go. I can do some exercises here while I'm at it. But I don't have a pillow out here. No, they're not my pajamas. It is my flannel shirt. It actually was a beautiful day here. The sun was shining. We had some snow on, Thursday or Friday, and no snow today. Snow's melting very, very fast. That means it's mud season here. Muddy, getting to our house. I encourage you to come anytime, not this week. You don't want to come this week. It's going to be kind of cold, kind of not real nice. But I suppose outside, and I'll step between here and my house, which is just right there. Could throw a rock and hit it. I don't know, it's probably 20 degrees out, I'm guessing. I'm a gardener. That's what I am, a gardener. I live at 8,600 feet above sea level. We have 3 days we can garden. And today's not one of them. Let's see. We have preacher. If you get arrested, they will swab your mouth anyway. You're probably right. I'm probably sunk on it. I'm not interested in doing one of those DNA things either. That didn't get Elizabeth Warren many points. And I just am a little too afraid of what they can find out through the DNA, really in terms of my health. Maybe they find out I'm carrying some mutant theologian gene, and somewhere down the road that becomes unconstitutional. Whatever it is, those things just kind of scare me a little bit. And I just don't know that I want to go there. Oh, Mel says, I was really sleepy till I signed on. Now I'm wide awake. And you're on, did I catch? I was going on, are you on the overnight shift? So, hey, we're here to help, right? We're here to help. I thought off and on about doing a night broadcast. I never had the ability to do it because I would have had to drive into the studio and, get everything. And I don't, unfortunately, or fortunately, I'm going to say fortunately, my son, came on board a couple of years ago, and he's got it all so worked up now that everything works just beautifully. But I don't know how to work it anymore. And so we set this studio up. Literally, it was my shed. And we cleaned it up and put some paneling on the walls. And this is just a green screen right here. I don't know, you can't see that, but it's a green screen. And as a matter of fact, there's a window right there. But I said, kind of make it simple so that I can do it. And that's what they have done. And so I hope it looks like it's broadcast. And I haven't heard many of you say bad things about the broadcast level. I only have the ability to broadcast to YouTube doing this. We have to get some more equipment to be able to do YouTube and Facebook at the same time because they don't like each other and they don't let you do it both ways. But I thought, it'd be fun. I will do it again. I don't think I'll make it very scheduled. So that'll make it kind of hard for those of you just, want to join me every, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, whatever. I think it'll be, I don't have anything going and I'm not ready to go to bed yet. And so I'll stay up. Okay. Did you get your stargazing permit? That goes back to New York. That is charging, I think it's $30. We looked at that for a stargazing permit. Only New York, right? Would carry that out. I will allow stargazing here for free, but there is a parking permit. Jonathan, good to see you, my old friend in Katy, Texas. Not on Drudge Report, now on Drudge, note on Drudge Report, how Israel will track ill people by their cell phones, including their history before reporting ill. Not a hit on Israel, but be aware of the ability to be tracked. Such a great point there, that with all the technology that is today, so now they've got me down for whatever they get, if they swab and they say, yeah, he's got COVID-19. And we notice that he also has a mutant theological gene, and his phone number is, and they put something in there and they know where I am to go. And, again, I'm going to assume that Jonathan knows what he's talking about Drudge Report here and tracking people by their cell phones. So certainly the ability is there. And I think, again, in Israel, they don't have quite the civil liberties that we have. And so to say you have COVID-19, so we have to know where you're going. And so what's your phone number? We're putting it on there. And so about the only thing you can do is leave your cell phone at home. And that's rather hard to do. Not a lot of people are going to do it. I think, by the way, privacy issues as it relates to electronic surveillance is huge. It's a huge thing in our future. Maybe as bad as this thing right here. Honestly, I would like to see, and one of these days I'm going to talk to my state representative about this. I would like to see legislation that says my face belongs to me. And you cannot, a company cannot, a church cannot, a government cannot pick up with facial recognition and say, this is who that is. Think how wonderful this would be for a mega church, right? All they do is have some cameras when they come in, and boom, here's their attendance list. This is a Baptist dream. Here's their attendance list, and they look down, and they say, oh, yeah, Jonathan is not here. I used to know Jonathan was there because he sat 4 rows back on the left in the chapel service at 8:15 in the morning at First Baptist Katy. I knew you were there, right? But, got these big old churches, and here it is, and gives you a report that so-and-so hadn't been here in 3 Sundays, whatever. You use that in business purposes or education purposes or government purposes. It quickly becomes a big brother. And I think states ought to enact legislation that says, unless I give you the ability to use my face, you cannot use my face. This is already done to a degree. Often you go somewhere, or we do it, even in vacation Bible schools and things like this, when they sign the permission slip. Part of the permission slip is we give you authority to put our picture or our child's picture on your website. So technically, I think, I can't just take a picture of everybody who's in the church and put it up on the website. I got to get their permission, because that's their identity out there. Now, with that, I think we ought to strengthen those and say the contours of my face, you have to have my permission before you can use it. So maybe I can say to big old mega church, okay, I give you permission to check attendance based upon the contours of my face. I give that to you. But there needs to be some laws on that. Now, going back to Jonathan's very good comment here about Drudge Report, and I haven't seen it, but the tracking of people who have COVID-19, then to say, they've been down there at, Joe's bar and pizza, subs, and weddings. And so therefore, who's been there? He's spreading it here. And he wasn't supposed to be there, and you're going to jail now. Here's your fine, whatever it may be. It becomes basically a tracking device of, they used to put around your ankle. Easier to do that, I think, in a place that doesn't have some of the strength of civil liberties that we have, but it's going away so quickly here in the United States and going to be taken care of, unfortunately, to the wrong way. Okay. Oh, wow, Mel. Working 36 out of 38. I'm at work. 36 out of 38. Something a night. I got it there. 36 years working nights. Wow. How did you do it without, what's the name of our program? I forgot. This is number one, the Theological Insomniac. That's quite it. I agree, Dan. You can sleep when we die, right? Question from Lisa. How will we know to tune in to the Theological Insomniac? I happen to be on the ministry wall, and Chris posted it. I don't know. I've got to figure that out. I probably will do a text message thing, but I definitely want to get your permission because, it'll probably come out late at night, and I don't want to be waking somebody up and making them mad, and, then they don't like me. So I got to kind of figure that out. And once again, I don't think I can commit myself to having a certain schedule on it. I would probably say that I tend to stay up later on Sunday nights, Monday nights, Tuesday nights, Friday nights. It'll never be on Saturday night. I can promise you that. And probably not Wednesday or Thursday because those are my long days, Wednesdays and Thursdays. So my guess is it'll be, midday or late in the week or early in the week that when we do it. Okay. Mel says I did not get a notification. I stumbled on it. Okay. Somehow you can have YouTube send you notifications, but I don't know how to do it. We'll figure all that out. Josh, thanks. Being on right now, watching this is strangely soothing. In, as Dan calls it, Randy's weird world, wearing his pajamas. These are not pajamas. It's a flannel shirt. I got it for Christmas. Oh my, I thought I was done with the comments, and then I scrolled down. Keith and Deb, we're glad you couldn't sleep and you find this. Welcome to the Theological Insomniac, where we talk about the normal, the abnormal, and the paranormal. Mostly maybe abnormal. But I think there's a lot of people, I may be wrong with this, I think there's a lot of people who either go to bed very late or they go to bed early-ish and they wake up and then they're kind of up and there's nothing, and they're flipping through the TV, which is just so worthless at night. I thought, I bet I'm not up by myself and it's a nice time to talk. So we'll talk here. The right dividing venters. Amen. We need to vent sometime, don't we? Dan says, I heard that China can ID people by their temperature. That's very interesting. even now I see at airports, and I saw a picture that someone was trying to get into the White House press room, and they had a 100-degree temperature, and so they were stopped. The headline looked like, they were trying to infiltrate the room. I didn't read the article, but I immediately said to my wife, as we were looking at that together, I said, you can kind of have a 100-degree temperature sometimes and not even know it. So I don't know that he's, oh, hey, I got the fever. Let's go and give it to the president. But they have those very quick things. They just sort of point at you, and it takes your temperature now. What else can they get? Can they pick up in your face there and use those things to identify you, to follow you? That's a possibility, to track you. They can track you in your car. So many of these cars with OnStar and all these fancy things that they've got. I mean, you can take it and look and say, oh, I see where my car is. I need to stop my car. Someone's stolen it, whatever. I can locate my car, find out where I put my car in the parking lot, all this. Well, that can be used by other people as well. Again, I don't think it's supposed to be used by other people, but I don't think that FISA court is supposed to be abused either. And it happens, right? Carries on there. Let's see, Deb says, actually, I woke up with a thought about a woman I was watching on YouTube that is in quarantine from a cruise. I'm starting to think something strange is going on. That would be interesting to check on and see what she's saying there. Very interesting. Dan says, I was coming through a border crossing about 10 years ago, and they showed me a machine that can see through cars. I don't know how this thing with Ford works that they've got now, that rear view camera. You've probably seen the commercials that sees through trailers. But whatever that technology is, and that may not be as magic as it seems, but they've got some amazing machinery. And when you put a government behind it, it's basically got unlimited money, especially a sovereign government, like the federal government of the United States. Just no telling what you've got there through all of that. Well, let's see. I have one other thing I wanted to. I want to bring up. Chris was on earlier. I don't know if he still is. Put up some numbers in our discussion group on Facebook. I'll show you where that is in a moment if you're not aware of it. But he said this. How about math? The total world population is 7.7 billion. Percentage of coronavirus infections, 156 is all those zeros, percent. That's, it's a fraction. Percentage of deaths is some kind of exponential number. The total world population in 1918 through 1920, the Spanish influenza outbreak, was 1.9 billion people. Total percentage of Spanish influenza infections estimated at 500 million, or 26% of the world's population. Now, again, notice we haven't even gotten to 1% of the world's population for COVID-19. Total deaths of Spanish influenza estimates at the low end are 17 million. That is 0.8%, just under 1%, to as high as just over 5% of the world's population at that time. All of these things, by the way, are kind of difficult here to determine how many people actually died of that, because you get other things, and which one killed you is a great dilemma. So crunch these numbers and consider that even if corona lasts for 2 years, why are we considering taking measures that most obviously would be needed for 1918 right now that were never employed, and it was a far worse viral strain? If we had such a pandemic now compared to 1918 levels, we would have already lost 1 to 4 million people to this date when Corona was first realized back in December, which we haven't. It doesn't explain the measures being taken now. Corona is nowhere near the level of pandemic, even with our technology and the ability to communicate. Some great numbers there. I'm assuming all of his numbers were right. I don't have any reason to believe not. They look accurate to me. And I completely agree that basically we have shut down the world. And we shut down the world for 100, I think he used 156,000. The current number is 169,387 and 6,500 deaths. Again, such a tiny little fraction that's given there. And we have shut down the world. People will go bankrupt for this. Undoubtedly will go bankrupt. I think everybody will be affected. I noticed last week, Dispensational Publishing is not a huge publishing house, and I can pretty well manage it. And sales plummeted last week. I don't think it was because people were out of money last week. I think it's because people's mind was so consumed with what's going on that they weren't thinking about reading a book. Their mind just wasn't on, sitting, relaxing, reading, studying. Their mind was consumed. So every business is going to be affected. And some of them for the better, in the short run anyway. Grocery stores got to be doing well, and their profit margins will go up. Other businesses, no doubt, I guess toilet paper is doing good right now. Kimberly-Clark and Johnson & Johnson, they must be doing well. So some of them are going to do well, but the vast majority, and especially really mom and pop businesses, travel businesses are for the most part mom and pop. Not airlines, obviously, and cruise lines, but the travel agent, the little tour company, the tour guide, the restaurant that they take, all of that's mom and pop. Just over and over, it's the mom and pop businesses that are really going to be hurt by this. And is it all a facade? Is it all a fear? Is there any reality to it? I think we have kind of jumped off a cliff here through what we have done and what we've been talking about through here. Let me see what comments I have before I send you off to bed. Let's see. I missed part of the conversation here, but Dan must have had a comment about the mark of the beast. Mel says the mark is around the corner, just not implemented yet. Maybe that's the cure for the corona, you think? That we can so totally see this mark of the beast thing now, I think, very easily. And the whole social grading, I don't know what they call it, the social grading that they have in China now, that you're not a very cooperative person. I think that's upon us. And I'm afraid of how I'll get that grade. But that'll come. Scott says, I've been a night owl for 70 years of my life. Only now I have to take a serious nap in the afternoon. I take a nap on Sunday afternoons, about 20 minutes. I never take a long nap. And only once or twice a week do I take a nap at all. It's usually Saturday, Sunday. I did take a nap on Sunday. A lot of times I'll take a little nap on Sunday, and I don't suppose I was down for 20 minutes, but that gives me energy to going. So maybe that's why I always stay up late on Sunday night. I don't know. The quarantine people in California are all going to their specific states because California governor wants them out. She said everyone states have their own plans. What does that mean? Well, see, it's kind of a draw. I started to say the California governor is a man, but I'm not completely sure there. Gavin Newsom. But it's interesting that these quarantine people and get them out of here. I don't know. Not working well, is it? Deb goes on to say, this is now worrying me more than the virus because I would never tell anyone that they would think I'm crazy. Yeah. It's a frightening thing what's going on here. And once again, there probably are some of you, and I don't mind hearing from you, that do say, no, it really is a serious health crisis. I'm not yet fully convinced. Maybe it will be, and I'll eat my words if I am, but I'm not yet fully convinced. And I hope that in short order, I hope that some sanity will prevail. I hope that some governments will pretty quickly come and say, we threw the baby out with the bathwater. We got to go outside and get the baby and bring it back in. Now, with that, here's what I suspect will happen. And I don't even care. I suspect they'll say, well, we turned the tide. This thing's going back down. Boy, sure is a good thing we did all that. Oh, it would have been disastrous if we hadn't have done all that. You can't prove that otherwise, so I'll take it. At least it's stopping it. And to me, that becomes a blessing and a good thing that is ending and not taking place through there. And I suppose some governments will come again in shorter, maybe even let's take New Mexico, 3 weeks out of school. Kids start going crazy. There's no place to put them. Congressmen or state representatives, mayors, school board members are getting phone calls saying, I want my kid in school. This is ridiculous. They start getting lots of public pressure. And they'll say, you know what? We think we have, by our prudent measures, we have managed to make this thing go away. And what a blessing it is that it goes away. And then with all of that, well, who cares? It'll go away. How's that? Pastor Rick just sent me a video that I am going to try to play, but I may not be able to because I don't know if I'm going to get sound here, but I'm going to try. Let's see. I didn't. So I got to figure out from Nathan tomorrow how to get sound through the computer and get that to go through there. But if you want to go and watch that, Francis Schaeffer, I have not watched it. Francis Schaeffer explains interposition and when to disobey the state. Looks interesting. And Pastor Rick out in California always chooses some good stuff there as well. So maybe check that out. Maybe we'll watch it next time we're on. Randy, do you get Mondays off? Off of what? Oh, I'll be on Ask the Theologian, 10 a.m. It's almost midnight here, getting close to bedtime. I think I'll call it an evening. And then I will be back for Ask the Theologian in the studio. I hope the sound was good tonight. Let me know what you thought. We've got this different microphone here. It's a one camera kind of scene, and things a little bit different through it all. But I hope you'll let me know what you thought. You can put them in the comments there, and I will check all of that out. Or there we go. I just changed the picture. He showed me how to do that. And in a moment, I will poof, disappear, and all you'll have is that for just a moment. I don't have any music yet because I don't know how to do all that sound. I told you it's a pretty basic broadcast we got here right in my shed. But that's the amazing thing of technology today. I can be in a shed in the mountains of New Mexico in my little bunker where you don't know where I am and can't give me coronavirus, and I can stay up till midnight and talk to you. Those of you on the East Coast, you're crazy. What in the world are you doing up this late? Those of you on the West Coast, drink some warm milk and it's about to go to bed. Time to go to bed. Those of you in the mountain zone with me, you live in the best place in America there is to live. I hope they don't ruin it like the governor of New Mexico and the mayor of Albuquerque and everybody else is working to make such a mess. Tomorrow morning, 10 a.m. Mountain Time, Ask the Theologian. And we will get a text alert for these broadcasts. I'll get all that set up tomorrow. I'll let you know how that is. And I'm sure that next night or two, somewhere here, we'll be on. I think this is an unusual time because of all of the concerns and pressures that are going on in our world today, that there's going to be a lot of people up in the middle of the night and need something other than Fox News to pay attention to. So we're here. It's been fun. You can now say that you were part of the very first Theological Insomniac with Dr. Randy White, where we have late night commentary on the normal, the abnormal, and the paranormal. I'm Randy White in my flannel shirt, not my pajamas. It's my flannel shirt. God bless you. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Sleep well.